So let's talk about roasting impact and the impact that it has on fragrance, aromas, and flavors. There's also the bonus exercise number 4 here, where you can taste and smell those same impacts, specifically on coffee roast. So how does coffee roasting impact coffee flavor? Most people have this general idea, right, that roasting impacts the coffee flavor. They might say, well, I am a bold coffee drinker, so I like dark roast. Or I like light roast. I like sour and acid in my coffee, acidity. So what's the connection and what's the science that's actually at work when we use this kind of a language? So again, going back to the original premise that this is the seed of a fruit. We're talking about coffee being a living organism full of different chemical compounds, depending on where it was grown, where it was harvested, and how that was protected as it traveled to your roastery and to your cafe where you're enjoying coffee. Okay, so does dark roast equal bold? Does light roast equal sour? Not necessarily. That's just a really simplified understanding that certain people in specialty coffee or in commercial general coffee have created. And it's marketing language that's easy. And generally, as humans, we like to put our money into things that make us happy and they're easy. They don't create a lot of controversy. So the goal of this is not to complicate things, really just to help you understand in a simple way a somewhat complicated situation, which is roasting coffee, right? So we take this green coffee seed and we throw it into a coffee roaster. This is a very small sample coffee roaster, and I can roast 120 grams at a time. That's about 4 ounces. But you can imagine a 5-pound, 10-pound, 70-pound, 100-pound coffee roaster, which is what a lot of the big coffee roasters use, where they're just dumping in huge amounts of coffee, maybe a bag at a time. And when that green coffee seed, which is hard, has a lot of moisture content in it, and when it hits that hot drum, hot air, and it begins roasting for 9, 11, 13 minutes, whatever the roast time is for that coffee, the flavors and the compounds, they transform, okay? And so if you have a coffee and you roast it just up to the point where those flavors have really kind of started to break down some of the green plant flavors that are inherent in any seed, and you're starting to caramelize sugars. Sugars melt at a natural melting point if you throw sugar onto a skillet on your oven stove, on the gas range. You will see that when the sugar reaches 185 degrees Celsius, 380, 390 degrees, it starts to melt. Okay, this is where coffee starts to become really sweet and it cracks. So you might hear first crack language, and that's where the coffee is cracking because all of that energy that's been applied to the bean, right? You're going to have this light roasted kind of first crack coffee. This is a beautiful coffee from Myanmar. And Myanmar, if you don't know, it's next to Thailand, south of China, and it grows some beautiful coffee. It also grows some crazy coffee. But when I drink this Myanmar coffee, I have this sweetness and the acidity, and it's clean, and it's like brown sugar, sugar cane. It's a marvelous coffee. But it doesn't have the same characteristic as a coffee that's grown somewhere else, or that same coffee if I roasted it darker. Because as I continue to roast it, I'm going to continue to transform those sugars. They're going to be chemical reactions where the compounds are breaking. Some of them are fleeting. Others, the pieces are combining with new partial compounds, and they're creating new sugars and proteins and acids and things that my tongue or my nose can perceive. So we move into medium roasted coffees, right? Medium roasted coffees, unlike the light roasted coffees, hard to show you on a small camera here, but these light roasted coffees, they have this kind of silver skin. They have, yellow lines in between the beans. That medium roasted coffee, it's almost all roasted out. It's just becoming purely brown. And I've basically burned away a lot of the acids. And you'll see in the slide, as we progress through the roasting process, we burn away the acids, we transform the sugars, and then we move into this burning pyrolysis stage where we're burning the coffee compounds. So a medium roasted coffee actually has this decreased acidity with a growing bitterness, but it's still very sweet. So it should have this nice sweet balance, whereas the light roasted had this nice sweet and sour balance. As we continue to roast on further, we're going to roast into a very dark coffee. This is a dark blended coffee. This is my medium blended coffee. And you can certainly tell our differences here with my light Myanmar coffee. So as you move into the dark roasted coffee, as long as you dark roast your coffee properly, it's not a bad thing. It's actually super easy for anyone to burn coffee. That's how some of these global franchises, I won't name any names, that's how they become safe. Because you can burn your coffee anywhere in the world and it will consistently taste like dark, smoky, bitter coffee. That's easy to replicate. If you try to replicate this same sugar, brown sugar sweetness, soft acidity with this tropical yellow fruit, that's really, really hard to replicate around the world. But this is just a chemical reaction, right? And so if you do a fine job on your dark roasted coffee, if you find a dark roasted coffee that you love, it's probably because they've perfectly found that place where those dry distillation maple syrup and malt and clove and spices, those things just pop out and it's not overcome by bitterness and just burnt carbon. So this is where our roasting can certainly impact the coffee. Now, not all coffee roast as dark, as nicely as other coffee does. And this is very much connected to the species, variety, and terroir where the coffee was grown. And so depending on where the coffee is grown, and especially the elevation, you may be able to roast that coffee darker. So if you're a coffee professional and you're wanting to know more about what kind of coffees can I roast really dark, how should I blend my coffees to create a dark roast blend or an espresso blend, these are actually really, really important questions. Because you can't randomly throw different coffees in and roast them to the same dark level and get the same dark expectations. Some coffees are amazing dark. Some of them are absolute rubbish when you roast them dark. So this is a very important discussion. If you're a pro, put your questions and comments down below or reach out to me on social. Would love to discuss. Great article here, or rather a great image here from Sweet Maria's. He's like the godfather of coffee roasting and blogging, like the Seth Godin of marketing. You know, he was blogging before blogging was cool, and there's a reason why you should go to Sweet Maria's and learn a lot. Sign up for my courses, but then go to Sweet Maria's and find some fun coffees to buy or find some other articles that interest you, but I can't recommend these guys enough. And yeah, just a really nice picture there. You'll see this picture replicated many times, but I wanted to make sure that I had Sweet Maria's name in it. In terms of language, so you will find some of this city, city plus, full city plus, Vienna French. I think that's the order it goes in. That was an interesting language that very intelligent people, Schultz included, Howard Schultz from Starbucks, created just to create some language around this specialty coffee stuff in the 90s and 2000s, but we've definitely moved on past that. So if you see some of that French Vienna, full city plus language, you know, you can connect it with this roasting chart, and it's kind of just a color. Maybe it's a roasting, but it's mostly a color perception. So look forward to your comments. We'll talk again soon.